everyone, welcome to Making Things with String. My name is Kate. My pronouns are she, her. I'm here with my friend Apollo, who doesn't often make appearances in my videos, but this is Apollo. And welcome to my crafty YouTube channel, where I talk a lot about cross stitch and some other crafts that I like to do. Today's going to be an update on my cross stitching. It's a pretty exciting video because I have 3 finished projects. One of them is a big one that, highly anticipated. And another exciting thing is that I am celebrating today because my YouTube channel finally reached 500 subscribers after 2+ years of making Flosstube videos. So that's an exciting milestone for me. And as promised, I have a giveaway associated with that milestone as a thank you for hanging out with me and watching my videos. Right, Paulo? Got a cup of tea here. And why don't we get started with the giveaway? So I don't do a ton of giveaways usually on my channel. I don't have a whole ton of stuff to give away. But on occasions such as this, I am motivated to do something as a gesture of thanks. So can you go sit somewhere? Can you go? Maybe let's go down here. There you go. All right. I have 3 little things to give away. And before I show them to you, I just want to go over how these giveaways are going to work. So if you're familiar with Flosstube videos, you might already know some of this stuff. But the way that we're going to give away these items is through the comment section below. So you're going to have to leave a comment on the video if you'd like any of these particular items. And I'm going to give you a code word to include in your comment to indicate which giveaway item you would like, so that that word enters you into the drawing that I will do for that particular item. So you can say specifically which things you're interested in, or leave a comment even if you're not interested in winning something, and then you won't be entered as long as you don't use any of those words. Another thing that's important is not to include the word giveaway, free, prize, anything like that in your comment itself, because I am led to understand that saying things like that causes nefarious actors to come in and try and trick you to give contact information or something like that. So please try not to do that. Just somehow incorporate the word for the item that you're interested in into your comment. You can work it into a sentence, or you can just type the word and that's it. So yeah. You do have to be 18 in order to win, because I will need to get your mailing address from you. Otherwise, I'm happy to ship most of these. 2 out of the 3 of them I will ship anywhere. One of them I will probably only ship within Canada. So let's start with the Canada only item first. I'm going to send somebody this beautiful skein of yarn. And the reason that this one I will only ship in Canada is just because it is the heftiest item, so I imagine will be the most expensive to ship. But on top of that, it's also a Canada themed yarn. So this is a skein of yarn from Nerds with Needles. If you've been watching my channel for a while, you'll definitely have heard of Nerds with Needles before. They are a local to me, Halifax, Nova Scotia, yarn dyeing company, and I usually buy a skein or 2 of their yarn at HalCon when I'm there every year. This particular skein of yarn is, it's like a fingering weight yarn. It's fine, number 2 weight. It's 75% superwash extra fine merino, 15% cashmere, and 10% nylon. I think that that's important because the reason that I really haven't used this skein of yarn is because of that cashmere content. So it means it's very soft, which is super nice, but it also means that I don't particularly want to knit socks with it. And I have discovered that that's probably the only kind of garment that I would make out of this skein of yarn that I, would really want to wear. So I just have not been knitting this up into anything, but it's a beautiful skein of yarn. Variegated colorway, red and white, obviously, but the white section has some nice red and pink speckling in it. And it's, like I said, super soft and a really beautiful, luxurious skein of yarn by a local to me yarn dyer whose yarn I knit with a lot. So I thought that this would be appropriate as a gift to one of my viewers. So if you are interested in this skein of yarn, include in your comment the word Canada to indicate your interest in this skein. So Canada for my one skein of yarn. And it's 245 yards or 100 grams. So a pretty standard skein of yarn. That's the first item. The second thing that I would like to give away is a couple skeins of Roxy Floss Co. Floss. This is actually, they're on the old cards still, so they say Leo and Roxy, but this company is now known as Roxy Floss Co. And I've got these 2 skeins of a colorway called Brass Tacks. So this colorway is called Brass Tacks. I have these 2 skeins left over from when I stitched the Modern Folk Embroidery pattern Reaching Skyward, which was their 2023 year-long stitch along. I used Brass Tacks along with The Wiz for that, and I had these 2 skeins left over that I haven't touched at all. So 2 full skeins of Brass Tacks, and I believe that Brass Tacks is not a standard Roxy Floss Co. colorway. I believe it was a one-of-a-kind or yeah, I'm not sure if you can still get it. Let me double check that actually. Yeah, so Brass Tacks is no longer on their website, so this is the only place you can get them. So if you are interested in these 2 beautiful little skeins of 8-yard Roxy Floss Brass Tacks, please include in your comment the word brass, BRASS, and I'll send those along to you. And again, these I will send anywhere, whereas the yarn is just for a Canadian. The next one I'm actually going to take out of its package. So the next one is a pattern. This is called The Art of Living and Banks, and it is charted by 1897 Schoolhouse Samplers. Give you a better look at this pattern here. It is a reproduction sampler, and I actually won this at Stitch North last year as a door prize. And I was kind of excited at the time to try this out. I've never done a reproduction sampler before. But yeah, I just don't think it's really super my style. I don't think I'm going to end up stitching it. But I know that a lot of people really do love stitching things like this, and so I thought I would give it away. So if you are interested in taking home this cross stitch pattern, please include the word art, A-R-T, in your comment below, and that will enter you to win. So yeah, a little pattern for you all. So that's going to be the giveaway. And I think I've said this in videos before, the number of subscribers doesn't really matter to me. You know, these videos are fun to do just for myself or for however many people are watching. But I do really appreciate when people are watching, especially when you're commenting and interacting with me. I really love that. So it is meaningful to me to see my subscriber number grow. And so, yeah, I'm happy to be able to do this little giveaway as a gesture of thanks for you all for watching. All right. So now I'm going to move on to updates on my cross stitch progress. Like I said, have 3 finishes, so we're going to start with those. You may be able to hear my husband in the background, and if you can, I apologize. So the first 2 things I'm going to talk about from your perspective will seem, both of them, like SAFs, starts and finishes, because I haven't shown either of them on my YouTube channel yet. The first one is the December Stitch for Pride pattern. So this is a stitch along from last year, although there is a 2025 stitch along as well for Stitch for Pride. But I am trying to catch up on and complete my 2024 ones. So I started catching up with December, and I actually will show you the piece so that you have something to look at while I'm talking about this. This is it. So just like all of the monthly patterns for this Stitch for Pride stitch along, this pattern is inspired by an LGBTQ artist. This one is inspired by Robert Indiana's work, and you, I would imagine, might recognize the piece of art that this image is based on. And so, yeah, this was a really fun little piece to stitch. And it was really interesting going through the learning materials for this artist as well, and learning about sort of the conflicted nature of his feelings about this work after it kind of exploded and became so super popular. So this piece is being stitched, or it was stitched, on a 36 count avocado toast linen from theSewingShop.ca. And I am using a Brin & Nettle floss to stitch this. The Brin & Nettle floss that I used is called Lunasaw, and it's this really beautiful pink and purple variegated floss that I still have some left, but I used this to stitch another pattern as well, my Antique Cups and Spoons pattern. So yeah, it's really, really cool. Love that floss, love the fabric, and love this little chart. So I now have August, September, October, and November to do for 2024 Stitch for Pride. So keep an eye out here for those going forward. So I actually started the December Stitch for Pride pattern on November 20th. But I hadn't been showing it in my videos because I didn't want to show the pattern before having done the learning associated with Robert, Indiana. So yeah, that's the reason. You know, there's only been a couple videos since then that I had it partially done, but I wanted to wait to show it to you until I kind of could talk a little bit about the artist and until I had done the learning myself. So I thought that was important. But I finished that piece on the 24th of January, so just a few days ago. So next up, another start and finish. I am going to put a cover photo up for this. The pattern is called A Brave New Year, and it is by Heartstring Samplery. And this is my blessing sampler for the year. And I have shown this image before and indicated that I was going to maybe use it as a blessing sampler. And I did. So I started it, I'll just give you a look here now. I started it on January 2nd. Oh, let's get something behind that. Go. Started it on January 2nd, and I finished it on, I believe, January 19th. And this is what it looks like. So I used mostly the called for DMC thread, although I did make a couple changes. I added in a color, the sort of light purple around that the words are written in around the edge, and I made a few little tweaks and changes. So the birds, I stitched them in a blue to match one of the motifs in the center. And yeah, I put my initials in there, and this was a really cute little sampler. One of the most like traditional sampler style patterns that I've ever stitched, but it's a nice, small, quick little pattern, perfect for a blessing sampler. So yeah, there we go. My needle is blessed for the year, apparently, because I started and finished this beautiful piece in the month of January. So yeah, like I said, stitched with some DMC thread, most of them called for. I stitched it on this 32 count affogato linen from Fiber on a Whim. And I actually stitched this piece with one strand of thread over 2 fabric threads, which is a little bit different because normally on 32 count, I would stitch with 2 strands over 2 fabric threads. So that's just a little bit of a difference. I've actually been finding lately that I do prefer stitching with 1 strand of thread. And so when I had this 32 count piece of linen that I was going to stitch on, I just thought I would give it a go with the 1 strand and see how I liked it. And for this style of pattern, it worked really well, and I kind of enjoy that sort of delicate look of the 1 strand. So cool. Yeah, had never tried that before, but I would definitely do it again for a pattern similar to this where I don't mind if the coverage is a little bit sparse. So yes, that is my blessing sampler, A Brave New World. All right, my last finish, you may have guessed it. If you've been around and watching for a while, you probably know what it is. But I have finished Needs No Paint. This is a pattern by Heaven and Earth Designs, charted by Heaven and Earth Designs. The art is by Jill Clare. And I started this in around February of 2021. And I managed to finish it on January 15th. Of this year. So that was pretty amazing. I wonder if I can, I had something like 10,000 stitches left on this on my last video. So it is quite a lot of stitching since my last video, more than I've ever done in a particular month. Yeah, so here it is. I took some video clips earlier of this piece, and so, you know, kind of getting up close and talking about the process of stitching it. So I will play those videos here to give you a better look at that piece. Here is needs no paint finished. I gave it a wash and an iron, and this is the result. So I'll give some close-up footage here to get a good idea of the detail of this piece. I started this piece up in this corner back in 2021. So I started with these extremely fiddly tail wispy hair bits. I've spoken about how tricky those are in some of my previous videos. They're tricky because they are not fully full coverage, so the background of this piece isn't stitched. I'll give you a fuller view at the back of this piece in a bit, but just to give you an idea, the back of these wispy hair bits are just super chunky and difficult because you can't really travel too much, or at least I tried not to travel too much in between those wisps so that that doesn't show from the front. These feathers in the hair are always a lot of fun to do. So when I first started the piece, I kind of made it to about here and took quite a long break. Then I think I came up here and started on this sort of top row of pages of the chart. So some more wispy hair bits, but then I started getting into this beautiful blue and orange watercolor section of the body of the horse, which was very colorful and such fun to stitch. And also in these areas, there's this these like big chunks of just sort of one color, which is a little bit different than the strands of hair, which have many colors in there. So these sections were a lot of fun. After that, I also went down and finished the whole head of the horse, which was also really fun and rewarding, a relatively small space with some detail that was really satisfying because it, was obviously something. So I can remember finishing this ear and feeling very satisfied about that. Here's a nice good look at the face. From here, I just started going back and forth, page by page, across this chart. So yeah, I think it's looking great. Some things that I've noticed is there's some texture here in this piece. I'm not sure if that is something that will go away once it's stretched over a frame. But I've also noticed here, you can see the lines where I was going down in the 10 by 10 columns. It's not super apparent, but it's definitely there. I tried, once I noticed that this was happening, I tried to feather things a bit along the edges, but it didn't seem to quite be enough to get rid of that. So that's something that can happen. But you'll notice that that only happens in these areas where it's all pretty much one color that I was stitching. It doesn't seem to happen. Those lines don't seem to occur in these other areas where there's a bunch of different colors stitched in. So here's a look at the front leg, which sort of fades away into nothing. And behind area, so I've mentioned before there was a lot of white stitches in here and maybe in here that I chose not to do just because it didn't make a lot of sense to me to stitch this body color in the background between these strands. And here we go, all the way down to the end. Towards the end of the piece, I finished these strands, and then I had left myself a nice big chunk of the full coverage up here to complete. So the last stitches that I completed were down here. One thing that I will mention is that in the original art piece, there's one more strand of like bendy hair down here, which I elected to leave off of this piece. I could go back and add it if I felt like it at some point, but like I said, stitching these wispy hair bits was sort of my least favorite part. They look beautiful, but it was my least favorite part of stitching this piece. And that little wisp wasn't connected to anything, so I just decided I would leave it out. But otherwise, there she is. Needs no paint. I wanted to give a little peek at the back of this piece. This is mostly for Jill, and I think is interesting to see generally as well. So like most full coverage cross stitch, it's like a total mess on the back. But I think that this, I've already showed this a little bit maybe, but demonstrates how hard these wispy hair threads were to stitch. There's just such a huge amount of bulk in here because of all of the different colors that were a part of that. And then you can see here as well, something that we looked at on the front. On the back, it's much more visible. The columns that I was stitching in that area where it was sort of all one color. And so you can see here, when it's like a mix of different colors, it's not as clear what the pattern is. Whereas here, these areas were just all fill in with one color, and that's very apparent from the back as well. So that is what that looks like. Another thing that you can see on the back of this piece is some attempts at gridding. The first time that I started this piece, I thought I might try gridding it just by making marks with a pencil. And I decided not to go with that, and I'm glad because I've now washed this piece several times. And that gridding never went away, so I'm not sure how, like, I read somewhere that you could use pencil, but I'm not sure how you're supposed to take the pencil markings out after the fact. But yeah, that is what the back looks like. So I'll have to look into framing this. I haven't looked at anything yet, but I'm thinking a nice wooden frame would be appropriate for this piece. My first full coverage finish and one of the largest project that I've ever finished. Really proud about that and excited to be done. So one last thing that I wanted to mention about Needs No Paint is, this is, like I said, it's my first real big full coverage finish, and it's the first big full coverage piece that I ever that I ever started. And the art that it's based on, that art by Jill Clare, Needs No Paint, you know, the reason that I wanted to stitch this gigantic full coverage cross stitch pattern is because the art really spoke to me. And, you know, I really appreciated the art. The way that she does her horses, you know, you can kind of feel the movement of the horse. You can feel the air rushing by. And so, do you want me to let you out, baby? So I actually reached out to the artist, Jill Clare, through her Etsy, to just let her know that I had just spent 4 years cross-stitching one of her beautiful works of art. I wanted to let her know how much I really, truly appreciated that piece of art and how close I had become with it. So yeah, I didn't really know what to expect because I saw on her Etsy site that she has somebody else kind of taking care of distribution of that work for her. It's like prints of her art that you can get off of Etsy. But she did respond back to me very quickly. And you know, she was very kind about my message and thanked me for sending it, and said that I had inspired her to go and get some work done on some painting. She's about 70, she said, at this point, and so is a little bit slower with the art than she used to be. But yeah, I thought that was, you know, that was by the recommendation of my friend Jill, who watches all of my videos. She suggested that I reach out to the artist, and I thought that was a really great idea. And I'm really glad that I did because, you know, the artist of the work is important to me. It's important to me that, that Heaven and Earth Designs licenses their charts with the artist, and that the artists are compensated when we purchase those cross-stitch designs. And I just thought if I had done a piece of art and somebody had spent so long painstakingly stitching a cross-stitch conversion of that art, that it might be nice to know. And I also thought that there's some artists in the cross-stitch community whose cross-stitch charts are very popular. For example, Amy Stewart has a lot of cross-stitchers stitching her art. And so she might be like more aware that that's happening. And if you go on Instagram and search for that, I'm sure that it's quite easy to find examples and see what people are doing with her art. Whereas I haven't seen a ton of people stitching Jill Clare's charts from Heaven and Earth Designs. And so, yeah, I just wanted her to know that I had done that. And so that's just like something, I don't know if you want to do the same thing, if you are really moved by a piece of art that you're stitching. It's definitely just like a cool idea and something that might be nice. So I now have a new start that I want to show you. I did also take a clip to get up close to this one earlier, so I will be rolling that, but I can't remember if I gave you all the details of the chart, so I'm going to do that now before showing the video just in case. This chart is called Abelonia's Apple Tree, and it is a chart by the Artsy Housewife. I'm stitching the chart with some Roxy Floss thread, which you'll hear a lot about in the video, and I'm stitching it on a 36 count piece of linen, also from Roxy Floss Co., and it's Panettone linen. That's the color. Yeah, so here's the video clip showing that whip to you and talking about some of the adjustments that I'm thinking about making to it. So I'm going to show you my start on this chart, Abelonia's Apple Tree by the Artsy Housewife. I am stitching this on a 36 count Panettone linen from Roxy Floss Co. And I purchased the floss pack, the conversion, at Stitch North last year in 2024. And yeah, I got started on this and have been really enjoying this chart and the conversion for the most part. I especially think the border and the moon colorways are a really great match and substitute for what we can see in the chart here on the picture. This chart calls for a bunch of over-dyed flosses, Classic Colorworks, I believe, and Weeks Dye Works. There's also a DMC conversion in there, but I purchased this Roxy Floss Co. conversion. Now, I am contemplating a couple adjustments. So first, let's talk about the dark green. So the dark green shows up in the dark part of the leaves and in some other places like this half of this butterfly and down here in the grass. And you can see that it's quite dark when compared to the light green, which is this lovely color in the conversion. So I'm going to put this kind of up here so we can compare to it. In the Roxy Floss conversion that I purchased, Salty Place here is what is included for this dark green. So first of all, you can see that the light green is a bit less of a tealy or blue green than what's in the chart, which is totally fine with me. But another thing that I noticed is that the level of contrast between these two is a lot higher in this conversion than it is in the chart. Now, there is quite a contrast, but this is a bit more than what I was anticipating. So I did stitch the butterfly with this called for Salty Place, and I think that looks good. But I was thinking I didn't want the leaves to be such a dark contrast. And for comparison, I've got DMC 500 here. This is what the chart calls for as the DMC alternative to the overdyed dark green color. And in comparison to Salty Place, you can see that it is quite a bit less dark. It's a very dark green, but this is almost black. It's like a green black. So what I did was I went to my stash and I found this Roxy Floss color called the Whiz, which I had for my Modern Folk Embroidery Reaching Skyward piece, the 2023 stitch along from Modern Folk Embroidery. I had a couple skeins of the Whiz left over from that. Now the Whiz isn't quite as dark as DMC 500, but it's a lot closer, in my opinion, than Salty Place. So I am contemplating swapping the Whiz out, and I have stitched these two leaves here with the Whiz and the called for lighter green color, which is light sage, this light sage color. So I think I'm pretty happy with that substitution on my part. So swapping out the Whiz for this Salty Place. Next, I wanted to check the apple colors. So I'm just going to move these over here and bring this down here. So the three colorways that are called for this conversion for the apples are Tuesday as the darkest, deepest red color, Fuji as like the middle apple color, and Salmon as the highlight. And you can see that it looks pretty comparable. But what I have found, or what I think, is that this main apple color, the Fuji, is pinker than is called for. This called for color is quite a bright, true red. And in fact, when you look at the DMC colors in the conversion, this is what we have. We've got DMC 3858, DMC 321 and DMC 352. So this middle color is a lot more red than Fuji. And also these three are a little more similar or close to one another than these three. So I'm looking for people's opinions about this apple. My question to you is, does this apple look good? Or is the difference in contrast between these three colors too high? In particular, I find that this deepest shade, the contrast is a little high for me, and it just like captures my attention in the way that it doesn't here in the pattern. Having said that, the pattern definitely does have a strong contrast between those shadow and highlight colors and the main apple color. So I'm just not sure. I think it looks good, but I'm not sure if I want to continue using these colors, swap to the DMC for the apples, or another alternative is I'm going to Stitch North again in April this year, and I could try and find some other Roxy Floss colors to stitch the apples in, because I know they have a lot of nice reds. So it's possible that there's another red Roxy Floss co-color that I might like better. So if you have thoughts about this, do let me know in the comments. What do you think of my apple? Is it fine? Should I swap it? What do you think? But yeah, apart from all the color shenanigans, I'm enjoying stitching this pattern quite a lot. It's really, really fun pattern to stitch. And I think it's beautiful, and I'm looking forward to continuing on it. So I started Abalonia's Apple Tree, by the way, on January 16th. Yeah, a lot of fun. All right, so I worked on 2 other whips or works in progress this month. The first one that I will talk about is the Arctic Animal Club Stitch Along by the Frosted Pumpkin Stitchery. So I do actually have some footage of what this piece looked like the last time that you saw it. And here is what it's looking like now. My lighting is getting a little dark, so we'll see how well I can adjust that in editing. But yes, here is my progress. So all of this mountain up at the top is what I've worked on since you last saw it. Got a little bit of Northern Lights stitched and a cute little orange cabin up in the mountains in the Arctic. And yeah, that's what it's looking like. So I think I'm going to continue all the way across the top here, and then go down into the middle and then down below. So this is such a fun piece to stitch on. I'm stitching it on a 25 count piece of Lugana. I hand dyed this fabric for this project using charcoal and aquamarine Rit dye. And I'm stitching it with the called for DMC with 2 strands of DMC over 2 fabric threads. So trying to catch up on this piece. I'm still a little bit behind. This is an ongoing SAL, and there are more clues yet to come. But yeah, just trying to get caught up on that and stitch on it a little bit when I feel like it. All right, so the last pattern that I worked on is a chart from Heaven and Earth Designs called Mini African Mammals. This is now that I'm done Needs No Paint, this is my new full coverage focus piece. So I have some footage here of what that looked like the last time that you saw it. I think probably in my whip parade. And here's what it's looking like now. So I have put in 1,621 stitches so far in January since the 15th, which is when I finished Needs No Paint, which I think is pretty good. I'm now at 6.55% complete for this piece. It's kind of interesting because I've been really enjoying working on this, and once I finished Needs No Paint, I thought, oh, I'll take a break until the end of January or February before I start worrying about getting stitches done on my next full coverage piece. But I did want to pull this out, and I ended up just like it says here, my average stitch rate per day is like 247 stitches, and the average stitch time is 2 hours and 12 minutes. I'm about 100 stitches per hour on this. I'm stitching it 2 strands of DMC thread over 1 of fabric thread on this 25 count gridded fabric, by the way. So it's just a lot of fun. Full coverage stitching is a lot of fun. You just do like a 10 by 10 square, and then you do another one, and then you do another one. And I just find it really rewarding and fun to stitch. So if I continue at this rate, it says that the estimated completion date for this is the 10th of November this year. So it'll be interesting to see if I maintain that momentum. I don't have like monthly stitch goals on this piece. I'm not saying I need to finish it this year or that my goal is to finish it this year. But it only has 75,400 total stitches. So it's a relatively small full coverage pattern. Just give you a bit of an idea. I think in my video footage it shows this as well, but this is the size of the fabric that I have for it. So yeah, I am interested to see when I will finish this piece, given that I'm really motivated to work on it right now, but that I also don't have any particular goals that I'm making myself complete the way I did last year. Like I was really pushing to finish Needs No Paint within the year last year, whereas now this year I'm kind of a little more lax with my goals. So yes, this is now 6.55% complete, and I have 70,458 stitches left to go, and have finished 4,942, and I'm gonna stitch more tonight after this. So that is it for my cross stitch update for the week. Thank you so much for watching. Again, if you want to enter any of those giveaways, use the keywords in your comment below, not the word giveaway. And otherwise, I'm happy to hear from you and chit chat in the comments below. And yeah, I will see you in the next one. Bye.